college students. And we're talking about hospice and what hospice is, and there's a lot of myths behind the word hospice. A lot of people think of it as very end of life, so I wanted to try to kind of address some of the misconceptions and just talk to you guys a little bit about it. And Jamie, she's actually an RN that graduated from Baptist, and she's an executive director with Kindred Hospice out of Restonville. So brought her a sidekick.
Yeah, I graduated from here. I went to LPN school here at Hurst, graduated in 2005, and then I fast-tracked to RN and graduated in 2007. And never once, whenever I was going through school, did I ever think I wanted to be a hospice nurse. And then whenever it crossed my path, you know, about five and a half years ago, I wish somebody would have slapped me in the face and showed me that there was a different way, other than, you know, some of the other things that I had been doing. So we're very excited to be here.
And any questions, if you guys have questions in the middle, you don't have to raise your hand. Okay, so this is kind of just our initial slide. Most patients and families wish they would have received hospice sooner. A lot of hospice referrals happen at the very end of life, and it's just because people think you put somebody on hospice and think, you know, when they're imminent or when they're about to pass. And really, as long as their prognosis is 6 months or less, if the disease were able to forward to continue its normal path, the patient would pass away. But that doesn't always happen, and just because they don't doesn't mean to kick them off service. We have them on service for several months to years.
Case in point, like in a recent example, we received a call on a Saturday and we went out and admitted a patient who passed away 4 hours later. That was a typical, we're going to call in hospice. And I don't think that the family benefited much out of that. We were able to get medications to the patient, but it took a lot of jumping through hoops, a lot of stress and all that. It took what should have been like a beautiful process and turned it into a very incredibly stressful one for the family, for the facility, for the nursing staff and all that. So that's one of these cases that we hear about all the time. You know, we're no longer looking at calling in hospice, we're looking at hospice as a resource.
Okay, so the what of hospice, so we have the specialized care. It either prolongs life or happens death, focused on quality of life provided by a team. We have bereavement and pre-bereavement support. So hospice care in America.
Yeah, so out of all the deaths in the United States, now keep in mind this is 2014, so it's a little bit dated. This right here, only 1.2 million actually received the hospice benefit. So what is the most underutilized Medicare benefit that someone has? So something in some other slides may cover this too, but I'll go ahead and throw it out there, is that our service is 100% paid for by Medicare. The patient and family have nothing to lose by this and everything to gain from it. So it's our mission to educate about this, you know, get beyond the word and let's focus on the service of what hospice is, because that's a ton. The fact remains, I tell people this all the time, nobody likes to talk about death. Nobody ever wants to do that. But the fact remains that people are dying every day without hospice services. So how can we change that to where they can actually utilize the resources and the benefits and change some lives?
And a lot of that starts with you guys as nurses, initiating like conversations with family. If you're able to identify a patient that looks hospice appropriate, you know, talking to a family about it when they're on the floor. And, you know, maybe the family brings it up to the physician. Well, maybe, what about hospice? Tell me about hospice. So it starts with your nurses. Okay. So covered services, you know, we cover our doctor and we have a nurse that takes care of the patient as well as an aide, medical equipment, medical supplies, medications associated with prognosis, comfort meds, and respite care. Anybody have any questions so far? Yeah.
Are there any stipulations that make Medicare pay for that? Like, will they say no to anything?
They will say no if there's not a prognosis of, you know, a terminal illness that's going to be less than 6 months. So a doctor has to give us an order and a second physician has to verbally certify that that person meets Medicare guidelines and local coverage determinations for Medicare to approve. Once they're approved and they have Medicare, they are entitled to all of these things. Absolutely. And you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here. You know, we had a family who brought us in because they were spending $400 to $500 a month on supplies alone. on Depends and White and Chucks and all those things. He did have a terminal illness, but that's kind of what opened up the door with it, with the financial relief for them. And so that's just supplies. You're not even talking about medications. The COPD patient, one inhaler can cost you $350 easily. And you're talking about people who have limited income and things like that. They're just not able to choose to, buy all these medications and pay all the other things that they have going on. So a lot of times, you'll find that they're either on some type of assistance for food or they're not taking their medications like they need to. So with hospice coming in and providing those things, you see much more managed disease processes because they can be compliant because they have the medication.
And Jamie, I'm just going to kind of piggyback on her, but she had said the 2 physicians have to certify. So that's usually a primary care physician, a hospitalist, and then our medical director. Hospice has our own MD that will come in and certify behind them to get hospice rolling.
I kind of got like 3 questions in one. Okay, I used to work at a long-term care facility for 4 years. And after I started, they put a patient on hospice. Okay, my question is, how long can you keep a patient on hospice before you take the patient back off hospice?
Yeah, so we do, and one of the slides will show this, where you can actually graduate from our program. And honestly, we come across things all the time where they've had an acute, something happens, they have chronic conditions, and then something acute happens, they get hospice on board. As we get on board, things start to levelize a little bit, and we see a significant improvement in some way. At that point, as we're recertifying them, we have to continue to prove the decline, even though it may be slow. But if we're not able to prove the decline, and instead they're trending up and improving, then we need to go ahead and do a live discharge and maybe, get them to some rehab or something like that. But, you'd be surprised at how many people actually qualify for our services. But we do have the rare instances where they've improved, or they just no longer, they've stayed the same for so long, they're not technically declining, even though they are presenting pretty bad, So time, the way it works is when someone comes on, they're given unlimited benefit periods. But the first 2 benefit periods are 90 days. And those 90-day benefit periods, we recertify them. When they get the 3rd benefit period and thereafter, our physician goes out and does a face-to-face every 60 days to make sure they still qualify. So there's no, Medicare doesn't say you can only get this amount of benefit periods. It's all about the decline.
And, your COPDers are like a good example because a lot of patients that we see that are COPD, they can't afford their medication, so they're just not taking anything. So hospice can come on and provide these inhalers that are $300 or $400, and they really improve. And 6 months later, they take them off of our services. It's a terminal illness, but they're not meeting the hospice guidelines anymore.
And to bring up long-term care, I come from long-term care as well. And I never saw the value of hospice in a long-term care facility. Because I was like, we have aides, we have nurses, we have everything else. What more can you do? We can do so much in addition to. We're not going to take the place of, but we're in addition to. So what family member out there doesn't want their loved one to receive more care? More eyes, more coordination of care, all these things. And so now we're seeing facilities do comfort care over hospice. And I posed the question, why? And they said, well, we can do everything that you can. I said, are you going to pay for their medications then? No. I said, well, then you're not doing what we do. You got to look beyond, just that care. Some of these families are struggling financially to pay for that assistance, Let us come in there and be utilized as that resource.
Your private pay in a nursing facility are around $6,000 a month average, not including meds. So we can come in and alleviate a lot of cost for your private pay especially.
So if they only got better because y'all gave them medication and then they get discharged, they're gonna decline again. Is there a certain way that they can come back?
The physician's order would get us right back out there to reevaluate and see the decline. And again, we start the process of having to prove their eligibility. And we try really hard, okay? So, yeah, we might have made them improve because of that. So we need to let Medicare know that, or let whoever that payer source is know they're better because X, Y, and Z, And then we can even try to okay, let's see, okay, they might not need that medication. Let's try to trend them down and see what happens, If they don't need our services, we don't want them, we don't want to be on there. But if they do, and we're providing all these things to them, we don't want to withdraw either.
covered services with hospice are going to be your treatment intended to cure the terminal illness, so like chemo, if we have a cancer patient. Medications are unrelated to the prognosis, which diabetic medications, stuff like that typically aren't. Room and board in a skilled nursing or assisted living. So we come in and pay for like meds, and we pay a rate to the facility, but we're not going to pay their room and board. So ER visits are unrelated to the terminal illness or ambulance transportation. Okay, so conditions of costs. You want to talk about costs?
You just learned about it though.
So these are our conditions of participation that healthcare organizations must meet to begin or continue participating in the Medicare and Medicaid programs. So their health and safety standards, they're the foundation for improving quality and protecting the health and safety of beneficiaries.
There's certain regulations that we must adhere to. But not all hospice agencies are created equal. We have the conditions of participation we have to live by, but we can go above those. We're never going to fall below. We're always going to go above.
An example is per Medicare, you have to follow a patient for 12 months after, or a family for 12 months after the patient passes if they were on hospice. Kindred kind of sets it up a little bit. We follow them for 13, just because to make sure we cover all the first. So, you know, the first Mother's Day or the birthday, the date of the death. So we really kind of step it up a little bit later.
And our obligations to our patients and families is that we provide care to them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. I tell people our after-hours business is just as big as our during-the-day business. So we run it just like that.
We have different levels of care. So the majority of our patients are routine home care. We do offer though something called general inpatient, which is GIP. I don't know if you've ever heard the term. If a patient's like symptoms cannot be controlled at home or wherever they call home, we can bring them to like a hospital is where we contract with our general inpatients to get their symptoms under control, pain managed, and then transfer them back out. We always start planning discharge upon admission of general inpatient. It's very little of our business. Continuous care, I've never done this. I've been here.
I haven't, but I've known somebody who has, and continuous care you have to provide 8 hours of continuous care in a 24-hour period, of which 4 of those hours have to be done by an RN.
51%, yeah, more of them. And then we have the respite care, which is Medicare will pay for 5 days. So if you're taking care of your loved one at home and you're going on vacation, or you just need a break because caregivers get really tired, they have a big job, Medicare will pay for you to go into like a nursing facility that we're contracted with for 5 days just to kind of give you some rest. So this is our routine care, which we talked about, which is the bulk of our business is routine care. Provided in home and assisted living, skilled nursing. So care provided by members of our IDG team, which is our interdisciplinary group, our physician, our nurse, our aide, our social worker, bereavement, chaplain, then our general inpatient, which we kind of just talked about.
Yeah, so the general inpatient, you would be really surprised of all the things that we can do in the home. We can do IV pain medications. You know, we have pain pumps and things like that we handle. We can do NG tube, you know, with a little bit of suction. We can do quite a bit of things in the home that would keep you from having to go into the hospital, because when people come to our services, a lot of the time, they don't want to go back to the hospital. They're just like, I don't care, take me anywhere, but don't take me back there. You know, they want to be at home surrounded by the people who love them, who they know, who they're comfortable with, and in their environment. So we try really hard to manage them at home.
These are just some of the possible triggers for GIP that we kind of talked about: pain crisis, unmanageable respiratory distress, imminent death. So GIP denials occur. So it can't be used to manage chronic conditions in the absence of discomfort.
Yeah, it can't be used in response to caregiver breakdown or to manage family dysfunction. You know, that's not the purpose of it. It can't be used for pain management with scheduled medications every 4 hours and little use of PRN medication. The last GIP that we did, they required 4 doses of PRN medications, either medications that still had the patient uncontrolled, and they were unstable for any kind of transportation to a different setting. Respiratory management is not requiring treatments or suctioning on a regular basis. So, I mean, it can't be used if your documentation does not support the hospice documentation. So we have to constantly prove on a day-to-day basis when somebody's in GIP why they require that higher level of care. And if they do, we'll go to the ends of the earth to prove it, but we do get denied on them sometimes.
Okay, so we talked about our continuous care, an 8-hour period, which 51% has to be done by the nurse. Continuous care. So our respite care is the short-term inpatient care to relieve the family or primary caregiver, limited to 5 consecutive days. So determining levels of care.
So yeah, a patient, they can be admitted to hospice on any level of care that's necessary at the time. So we can admit directly into a respite, we just have to show proof. And they may also be transferred between level of cares as their need changes. The decision to treat someone on a higher level of care falls to the hospice physician and is documented by the physician and the hospice nurse. So there's nothing that says you can have a respite stay every month, every 3 months. It's not, there's no set amount of time. It's based on the need. Your plan of care, it has to be individualized, and not every hospice patient is the same. We don't try to fit them into a box, into a certain mold. So one family's dysfunction is functional to them. Somebody else is over here, everything's falling apart, and we need to get them in somewhere so that we can get them some relief. So it's truly individualized to what the need is.
Okay, so like you heard the word IDG, it's our interdisciplinary group with the patient's attending physician and, like I said, the nurse, the social worker, the chaplain, bereavement. It's kind of about that. So volunteers. So we love volunteers.
We need more volunteers. Hospice was started initially because of volunteers who went to the bedside and did all these things, and then it slowly evolved over the years into a business. But at least 5% of our total direct patient care hours and administrative hours have to be provided by a volunteer. And so we treat them like employees. They have to undergo the same screenings an employee does, but the difference is they do it free of charge. So it takes somebody with a special heart to serve, but it truly makes a difference in the lives of patients and families.
So our bereavement, we offer bereavement counseling. That's kind of like what we talked about, the following the patient for 13 months after death, or the family.
So CMS updated some conditions of participation. Prior to 2013, hospice covered medications related to only the hospice diagnosis. So if we admitted you for congestive heart failure, and it didn't matter what else you had going on, we only treated congestive heart failure. Well, after August of 2013, hospice is now required to cover any medications associated with comorbidities that the hospice medical director considers are related to that terminal illness. So that could be a lot of things. You think about your Alzheimer's, your dementia patients who have chronic infections, who have hypertension, so their dementia may be vascular in nature. You got all those things. We're treating so much more now, which I think is a wonderful thing that we are. But our medical director determines that after every admission, what is related to that diagnosis, and then we make sure we cover services and treatments related to it.
Okay, so what is related?
So is it related to the terminal illness, or is it related to the terminal condition, or is it related to the terminal prognosis? That's what they're looking at.
So hospice benefit eligibility. The win of hospice. So we talked about it a little bit earlier. There has to be a diagnosis of a terminal illness. They're no longer seeking aggressive treatment, which would be like the chemos we typically see. And then the two physicians will certify a 6-month prognosis. Okay, so aggressive treatment. We talked about that. So the why now of hospice. So if a patient with a terminal illness, a CHF, a COPD, cancer, if they're frequently hospitalized, if multiple falls, needing home with all their ADLs, infections, altered mental status, that indicates the need for a hospice evaluation. So the where of hospice, we talked about this earlier, the majority of our business is home. We don't have an inpatient unit. If a patient needs to be managed, we typically just use the general inpatient and then get them back home. We do offer hospice in the nursing facility or assisted living facility and in the hospital. So revocations, this is what we talked about, the people that can graduate off of our program. So people do get better. Their terminal illness doesn't necessarily go away, but they do improve and no longer qualify for hospice.
And a revocation too could be that person who we get onto our services and they panic. You know, they're fine with it and they start rocking along until something happens. And they hit the panic button, you know, and they're dialing 911 and they go to the hospital and they're just searching for that possibility that there is something out there that they can do to cure their illness. And I do not fault anybody for that. You know, if there's something that you can do to improve your condition, do it. But if you hear that no for the third time, I'm going to be here for you. You know, you can come back to us. So that they can revoke the election. There's nothing that's written in stone whenever they sign up for us. There is such a thing as a revocation. And it's usually because they panic, you know, or they fall and they break a hip and the doctors think that they can, you know, be surgically repaired and go to a rehab. You know, we had that happen recently and the outcome was not very good at all. But a revocation, it could be avoided by prioritizing and visiting the patient more frequently, through offering respite care or considering a hospice room at a hospital or something like through GIP if they qualified. And so we try very, very hard to identify high-risk patients for revocations and get more assistance in the home. Maybe they need more aid care. Maybe they need a nurse more than once a week that's the normal. You know, we have a nurse practitioner that we send into the homes to try to help us manage these things, you know, so we try really hard to avoid them.
Does anybody have any questions? I will throw in like a couple of so we talked about, you want to talk about hospice versus palliative care?
Yeah, so palliative care is specialized health care for people with advanced illnesses. It provides patients with pain and symptom management. The goal is to improve their quality of life through a holistic approach encompassing the patient, family, and caregivers. It's delivered by a clinical specialty team of doctors, nurses, and other clinicians who work together with the patient's healthcare team to provide additional and/or complementary specialty care. It's important to note that palliative care is clinically appropriate at any age and can be provided at any stage of a serious illness. And it may also be provided with curative treatments. And again, this is from 2014. And when I read this sounds so much like what we do in hospice today. You know, 4 years ago, I could see there being a difference between palliative care versus hospice. But now we are evolving and we are becoming really, really close and in line with palliative care. So the lines they get blurred a little bit. It's just a lot of times who's providing the treatment and where it's being provided at. And it can be done, like I said, at any age, you know, not just necessarily with a terminal illness. So that's just some of the comparisons. But this is from 2014, so literally when I read this, I was thinking we do this every single day.
Okay, so the benefits of hospice. You want to cover it?
Yeah. It's important that you know the general value. There are important tools that we use to determine the sales process. However, it's equally important to be aware that the majority of our competitors use the same general value propositions. This is where we say not all hospices are created equal. So Kindred takes these values to the next level by also including unique sales propositions. And those are things that are specifically related to our brand and our core operations. So in short, it's what makes us different and able to demonstrate that we are creating different. We have service standards and commitments, and it may follow on some of these slides, but just some things that we do that's different from our competitor where we're located is, you know, we make contact with family and patients within 1 hour and we admit qualified patients within 3 hours. And we do that because the day somebody calls hospice is the worst day of their life. You know, there is no reason for you to ring our phone and us say, we'll get to you in a couple of days. No, we'll get to you today. When would you like it? Where do you want us to come? Where can we meet you? You know, we have tracked down family members who are trying to catch a plane, and we are calling other offices to say, can you get to that airport? You know, how can we go about this with a sense of urgency so that they can have our services quickly?
Okay, so the benefits to the customers, reduce staff turnover within facilities, improved support for staff within facilities, willingness to have the hospice conversation for referral sources, hospice. So we like to tell our physicians, our nursing facilities, if you have a patient that you're trying to initiate a hospice conversation with, call us. You know, we're the people that do this every single day. And, you know, their MDs, they specialize in that. We specialize in hospice. It's all we eat, drink free hospice. I mean, we talk about it at 10 o'clock at night. So like, just call us and we would love to have that conversation with your patients. So improved office efficiency and time management, specialty programs for patients, families, and referral sources related to an extremely emotional element of care practice. So our mission with Kindred is to ultimately make a difference in the lives of our patients and families by working with them hand in hand throughout their journey.
Yeah, I mean, we're not scary people, so a lot of times we just try to tell people, let us come have that conversation for you, so that they can see the people who do hospice, and they see that we're not, you know,
We don't dress like in black every day, you know, like we like pastel.
yeah.
We try to be just super calm.
Yeah.
Because hospice is a scary word, and people hear it and they just kind of shut down. And we don't, you know, we want to bring
A little bit of light.
a little bit of life to death.
Absolutely, bring the light in dark places for sure. But our vision with Kindred is to lead the way in delivering clinical excellence, extraordinary service, and compassionate hospital. And Kindred across the nation is the leading, or is the largest healthcare provider in the nation. So we have big, you know, resources, but still small hometown feel. So our region is connected to the West region, so we get everything. I mean, everything comes out, seems like in California, and works its way across the nation. And so in terms of healthcare, we're right there on the cusp of that. If something comes out that's new, you know, we have people up in Washington all the time who are up there working with legislators and all that, trying to advance our career and this business. So if there's something new, we're going to be on the brink of it.
Okay, so our commitments to care, we make patients and their families our first priority. That kind of goes with we're going to make contact within an hour and admit within 3. We will communicate with patients, families, and healthcare partners based on their expectations. We will visit our patients and families based on their needs and will provide the appropriate level of care, managing symptoms at every visit. We will engage in a holistic approach to care, which preserves patient comfort, dignity, and self-respect, and honors patient rights.
We always say you never go wrong by doing the right thing, and we're doing the right thing by people. And at the very end of life, there's no second chance to get it right. So we're there. Behind every beautiful hospice experience, there are people who are working very, very hard behind the scenes to give that family that experience. You know, there's nothing easy to it, but it's the most rewarding thing I think I've ever done in my nursing career.
Anybody got any questions?
I know that when hospice first started, a lot of the clientele probably were related to cancer-type patients, and I'm just curious how many now have chronic respiratory diseases like COPD and pulmonary fibrosis.
A bunch.
That's what I thought.
A whole lot more.
I would say cancer is probably the least that we see.
Still high?
No.
Not as so much as COPD. I was thinking that, yeah.
Well, and your oncologists, you know, they're the ones that they're going to treat it till the very end, or try to cure till the very end. So if we do get a cancer patient, it's typically we don't have it very long. But your COPDers, your heart failures, your dementia, we have those patients a lot longer.
I would say for my area, we're primarily respiratory and dementia. We do have a mix of some heart failures and cancer, and we've had an HIV as well. We've had we do have MS, yeah, as well. So just go ahead.
You said dementia can be vascular. Could you explain that?
Yeah, so someone who has, you know, decreased circulation and things like that have led to them having an advance of dementia. So typically you'll find sometimes they'll diagnose it as vascular dementia, or somebody who has CVA, you know, stroke patients and things like that advance the disease process. A lot of times whenever our doctors are certifying these diagnoses, they're trying to bring on someone who, how can they get the most benefit? Is it better to bring someone on with a CVA and there's not going to be a whole lot related to that, or is it best to bring somebody on with the dementia, the vascular dementia, who has a CVA that we can link up and it's a related diagnosis and we can help pay for and cover more things?
I've seen like Kindred come to like, nurse home, like they're like giving them a bath.
Yeah, so the aides are coming in there, yeah. And, okay, so in this area, it's probably much different than in the area we're coming from. So in Russellville, primarily the facilities like it, whenever they know somebody's on hospice, that's one less person
Right.
that they
That's
have to
what I'm saying.
like, we can mark them off our list today for having to do a vet.
Right.
And so, I don't know about this area, but we do, our aides go in there and provide the bathing and things like that. But the nurse in that facility, this is where it helps the facility so much more. That nurse who can come in and coordinate the care. Because a lot of times the nurses on the floor, they're passing medications, they see 30 patients, yeah, something's going on, they're gonna try, but if you think if you went in and saw one patient, you're not seeing those other 29. You're specializing and focusing on this person. You're gonna be able to identify so many different things, and you're combing through that bar, and you're doing all these different things, and you're like, oh, wait, yeah, they are still having some pain, and I don't think it's really being treated well enough with this. So let me coordinate with that nurse, let me coordinate with that family member, and then we can go to their care plan meetings, we provide additional documentation, because long-term care is almost, it's like the second most regulated industry, I think behind nuclear plants. And so it's like, they have so many things that they need to pass audits, that hospice can come in there and really, really highlight and shine for that facility and for that patient. And then, we're additional communication to the family members. We can say, hey, we're gonna be there on Tuesday, if you wanna come and come to the visit with us. I'd love to talk to you while we're there. We just have that kind of time where we can do that. And so you just have to see the value of it in a nursing home. And I personally never did until I started doing hospice. And then I made it my mission to be that value to the facilities.
We can, we're spending a lot more one-on-one time, so we can determine a decline, usually more quickly. We can determine, is this patient getting an infection, we can get antibiotics, or a lot of people think they're on hospice, they're not gonna treat an infection. We're gonna treat you with antibiotics if you need antibiotics. We're not just gonna let you lay there and suffer. If you have a UTI and you're in pain, we're not gonna be like, well, then you're on hospice.
Here's more, we're not gonna do that. We're trying to get to the bottom of what it is that can make that person have quality of life. Quality over quantity. Any other questions?
Quality over quantity. But typically patients live 28 days longer on hospice. So you get quality over quantity.
How much longer?
28 days on average. Just because we're able to provide medications that necessarily they weren't able to get before. And your patients that aren't able to eat very much, we can provide a case of Ensure a week. So that might be something that helps them live a little bit longer. They're able to drink that drink 3 or 4 times a day. So
If their nutrition is compromised, we'll help supplement their nutrition. We look at all those things. So it's like complete comprehensive from head to toe, and not only the patient, but we factor in that family, into the mix too. We're treating the patients, we're treating the family and everybody. And then we're also, I think their attending physicians are very happy with the care whenever they come onto our services, because Alexis goes back into those doctor's offices and, rounds on them and, constantly educating. She's able to provide them more updates with how that patient's doing in the home setting than when they saw that patient in the clinic. Because I don't know, the greatest generation of people that we're serving right now are the kind of people that when they go into town, they're getting made up, they might not do anything else that day, but they're gonna put their clothes on, they're gonna try to put their makeup on, they're gonna try to fix their hair. And when they go to the doctor's like, I don't think they're ready for hospice. I mean, they looked fine when they came in here. And I'm like, but you should have seen them 2 days after they came here. They were completely depleted, they were drained, they were wiped out because they sat in the waiting room, they saw the physician, they went to the pharmacy, while they were in town, they had to do something else, it wiped them out. And I came into hospice after having 2 loved ones who passed away, both in very different ways, and never once was hospice brought up to us, not a single time. And I didn't know that it should have been at the time, I was working in a long-term care facility, and someone came to me and said, I think that you would, we have a position open, I think you should really look into it. So I was like, okay, and I did, and I took it, and then I learned about all that they could do, and it would have changed our life if they would have just mentioned it. And I don't know, maybe it was because they felt like our family wasn't ready to receive the word hospice. Maybe, but that's our choice, Somebody should have advocated and said something. So I'm passionate about doing that. I don't have any problem standing up here, trying to get more people to be on hospice services because there's a need, There's a true need. There are people out there every day that are bending over backwards, families who are going to the ends of the earth to do all they can for their loved ones, and they need help. It's what they're doing is the best they can do, but how can we come in there and help them? It will change the outcomes tremendously. So just keep that in mind, you know? Hospice, yeah, it carries a bad word in this area for whatever reason, but it doesn't have to be that way. You know, people can see beyond the word and more about the service that they receive, and it won't be so scary.
Any other questions?
So the volunteers are in there, they do the same things that they used to, like they did by 4 days.
Socialize, you know,
Paint fingernails. Yeah, so like a lady asked me to do her eyebrows. I mean, just whatever. I mean, they love to hang out. Yeah, they love visitors, and we read them on patients. We have some nursing home patients that, you know, family ever comes and sees them. So it's just still like a nursing home is their family. So that's what they do. They love it.
if you can play a musical instrument, it's like you were studying it, you know? Music crosses all barriers, you know? And so just, it's just wonderful.
I remember seeing a picture one time where I think I had it in my, where the gentleman was part of a string orchestra or something like that, and his cohorts came and around his bedside and played for him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's just so cool.
It is amazing. And I talked to a volunteer the other day who, she wasn't volunteering with us, but she had volunteered at a nursing home. And she said that she went and she sang and she played her guitar for 8 months. And this one man came every time and never spoke. And after 8 months, he said, "When are you coming back?" You know, never spoke, but that music crossed through to him. So it's just really cool. Maybe you don't have any time, but maybe you know somebody who does. You know, church groups are always looking to get plugged in, you know, talk about the services. They're always looking for ways that they can help, you know, and I would love for them to link up with any Kindred Hospice and become a volunteer. They're always searching for one.
You said that y'all follow up with the families, what else do y'all do for the families
After they, okay, so Medicare does require we contact them within certain time frames. So typically within 5 days, we're making a phone call and we're doing an assessment. And sometimes that prompts a visit by our chaplain or our bereavement coordinator, and then we can further assess the situation. If this is a bad situation, you know, the loved one who just lost, they were the breadwinner of their